Gerald is just trying to turn on his computer. But interestingly,
life is improvisation, Lucas, and it's actually with that headset, it's working. Good evening.
Okay, wow, that was really on time. We tried like the last 15 minutes to turn this thing on. It sounds like Gerald, thank you very much for your time to join in this session.
You're most welcome. It's my pleasure.
And I would like to ask you to introduce yourself. So what is your name and what is your profession?
I'm Gerald. I'm a teacher.
A teacher?
Just kidding. You know, it's like, I think the question is great because it allows everything. It allows like a snapshot. It allows a whole story. And it allows you to tell what's important with respect to improvisation. And maybe I introduce myself related to that issue. So, what is improvisation all about in my life? Actually, here I would like to go a little bit beyond university. So for me, it's not just like something where you say, okay, it's a field within academia, or it's a research topic. No, actually, it's a kind of a necessity. And improvisation, I think the access I had to the topic was like based on shortage. For example, when I was working as an engineer in construction, it was very often like that we wanted to do something, but we didn't have everything with respect to tools, with respect to material, with respect to people, with respect to knowledge. And so the question is what to do. And I think that was my access to improvisation. So my theater of improvisation was working life. It was engineering. And based on that, I saw that pressure can be something really positive. So my access to improvisation is maybe different than others because it's based on pressure, shortage, and how to overcome a kind of gaps. So that was the kind of access that I had first. And actually, it was also similar when I was working as an entrepreneur with my own ski school business. So it was not a ski school. I called it a ski adventure company. And actually, I think, we were really the first ones who did snow rafting because, that was before snow rafting became a topic. So you have to know how to do it. You have an idea. You have maybe a kind of a vision about a kind of pleasure you want to attain, experience you want to make. And that was like going down the mountain in unconventional ways, like on a tube, like in a boat. And we used like the tires from the big trucks. So that was our starting point, and then tried to avoid injuries. So skiing and ski adventure, that was one thing. The other thing was, as I said, construction and engineering. And the third one is actually cooking. Because in cooking, it's also something like very often you don't have actually all the things that you wish to have at home, right? So you look into the fridge, not everything is there. You forgot something. And then you ask yourself, okay, maybe I can do even better. So the situation is a kind of a problem, a challenge, a pressure that gives you the opportunity to outperform yourself. So I think based on that, what you already see here is that I do not consider problem as negative. And I also do not consider pressure as a negative influence. I would say it's one of the biggest motivations that we might have in life. So the necessity for doing something. And So you see there are different faces of Gerald Steiner, and now I come to my name as Lucas asked me. So those three stories kind of describe who I am. And that brought me actually as a consequence to academia. So it was first the real life improvisation experience that brought me to a kind of a point in my life where I thought, okay, I would like to think more about what's going on here. What are the mechanisms behind creative problem solving, behind improvisation, behind innovation? Yeah, and that was the way back to university, now as a researcher, and now in my position as professor for communication and innovation at Danube University, and also with respect to several fields where innovation and creative problem solving is differently applied. Maybe we just make a short stop here at that point with respect to what's going on now at university. And does improvisation has a kind of opportunity in this kind of life? Or is it just like the need to reproduce things that the lecturer or that the professor is asking you? And actually, I hope it's not like that. So for sure, there's a need to understand things, system understanding. There's a need for rationality. And there's a thing that I would call, you need to make the lessons and you need to learn yourself also in order to have a kind of a safety net, in order then to go into something that we then might call innovation, new ways of approaching things. And at university, I think it's a good example that we need to consider improvisation and creative problem solving, not as something that is based on exclusivity. So being different, being always creative, doing things in a always unexpected way. No, it's not like that. That's one part of the coin, but there's also something else. And I would say improvisation and creative problem solving is something that is very much related to, call it inclusivity. So it's inclusive thinking and acting, because you also need rationality to understand the process. Maybe an understanding of inefficiencies is the starting point for the need of improvisation, creative problem solving, and therefore the kind of a gate to innovation. And I think this is the thing that improvisation is a concept, and is a concept, a philosophy, a method, and it's a way of living, I would say, that is not only related to theater, but it's related to life. So the theater of life can have different appearances. It might be related to art. It might be related to science. It might be related to sports, to relationships, and all that. And I think maybe one last issue here that nicely fits into these considerations is complexity. I mean, all of you have a look outside what's going on right now, COVID-19, security issues, different issues related to climate change, and so on, you name it. And what all of these issues have in common is that they show a high degree of complexity. And complexity, when we think about it, what it means is that for a complex situation, for a complex problem, you don't have just standard solutions. And that's the key issue. So when you don't have standard solutions available for it, but you need something new, it's not only like that we just start from scratch and say, okay, forget everything that we learned in life and do something differently. So I think, I mean, when you think about that sentence, you already see what's important here. In order to do things differently, first of all, you also should know what happened so far. how did others approach a situation? And now we get to do a kind of an interesting critical issue here. Where to start? Should we start from scratch and use that kind of creativity in order to do something without being influenced by different disciplines, by different scholars, by different experiences out there? Or does it make sense to first learn your lessons? And I can just tell you that I think it depends. It really depends on the situation. It depends on the time that you have available. And sometimes creativity looks like, yeah, it's a kind of a luxury good. You have time. You are this creative spirit, or your group is in that kind of creative position. So outstanding, cool. And therefore, yeah, take the time you need and do something important and innovative. But most of the times, it's not like that. Most of the times you're limited by time, you're limited by people, you're limited by nearly all resources. And so therefore, again, we see that this kind of pressure or framework conditions are very much characterizing what we do. And it's good that we have that kind of framework conditions, but because I would say maybe they bring the best out of us. It's sometimes the need to perform, or it's the need of not having everything available. And based on that situation, sometimes we do better than we would expect with respect to ourselves and with respect to the whole system where we're embedded in. And maybe here, one thing, I think sometimes there's the need for it, and sometimes there is a kind of inner motivation, call it like that, of doing things in a surprising manner. And I can tell you now things to teaching. And this course is a good example for a great teacher who knows the foundations of the field, but who also brings out the best of the course members. And that's a key issue. So, and how to do that. And I think, yeah, sometimes as a teacher, as an instructor, we can try to surprise ourselves. I mean, just imagine doing things always in the same manner. I mean, wouldn't that be horrible? I mean, I tell you, when I do the things 3 times in the same manner, the same course in the same manner, I mean, I'm out of the system. I'm definitely out of the system. So I want to surprise myself. And that's a good thing. Do you want to surprise yourself or not? Do you want to just to satisfy others or say your boss? Yeah, you also can use improvisation for that. So we see it's a different situation, different aims, different restrictions that bring us in a position where we can try to do our best as creative personalities. Or, and I think this is also important, you act here as a group. So it's a creative group. And when you consider now the University of as an organization, we talk about a creative organization. And maybe it might be even more than that, because consider now again COVID-19, it might take an international, a transatlantic network approach in order to handle the ongoing crisis and in order to handle future vulnerability challenges. So I think I introduced now myself in a short sentence.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction and your examples. So you said like the shortage, the pressure and the challenge is a situation in which you have to improvise. So I think this is one side of the coin. The other is how you deal with that. What kind of skills, experiences and mindsets do you have? So what would you say is the other side of the coin? What do you need or what do you have to learn to also, you know, deal with such challenges?
I would say, I mean, maybe the key difference here might be, again, the characterization of complexity. So how complex is the challenge? How complex is the task that you have to deal with? And say, for example, let's take again the cooking example. So the cooking example is not the most complex one. It's still of complexity, but it's not the most complex ones, because the most complex ones are those where uncountable agents are involved, where different preferences are involved, where so different perspectives and expectations about future developments might be involved, and where different interactions might change over time. So that kind of issue, that changing patterns, make it extremely difficult and challenging for us. And so therefore, I think, depending where you are and how complex the challenge is, the more, and I really think this is important, the more inclusive our approach has to be. And I think complexity as such requires different perspectives, such as system considerations. So that means you call it now methods, also related to specific skills, in order to understand such systems, maybe to model such systems, maybe to communicate that systems to others, because when I can communicate my mental model to others, another one catch it like a ball and make something out of it yourself. So therefore, it's based on that situation that I also not only need modeling skills and big picture thinking, but I need also methods in order to guide group processes. So not only creativity techniques, but structuring methods. Sometimes we borrowed that method, for example, in quality management, you know, in Six Sigma, Ishikawa diagram, how to structure a problem to better understand what's behind, what are the causes, what are the interrelationships. So I think, I mean, this is extremely important, and it's even more important the more complex the challenge is. Methods, yes, and I think with the methods and with respect to creative problem solving and improvisation, it's similar to an issue like repairing a car. Imagine you have an old timer, and you would like to have it tuned, or you know, to do like a kind of a service on it, or maybe you need to repair something. Yeah, most probably you would like to have someone on board who already has experience with the method. So I think it's not only like a theoretical exercise. It's important to have methods and to apply that method. So experience is definitely here a crucial thing. And with respect, call it mindsets or modes of thinking, I think it's also important to have the different possibilities available and mix it like a cook again. I like actually maybe the cooking example most of all the examples that I mentioned, because cooking is really a challenging issue. Think about it. Nutrition, environment that you influence by that, performance that is affected by nutrition, and all that, and say, is it kind of a pleasure to your friends when you cook? So all that things are a good example that sometimes maybe it's a nice thing to do a traditional dish, something like the Wiener Schnitzel. So, you know, like when we have colleagues from the States, for example, yeah, Wiener Schnitzel might be the thing to go, and not like a French cuisine, you know, with extraordinary, unbelievable tastes that you have never experienced before. Sometimes it's that. So I think, depending on the situation, on the target group, it's a good thing when you can be creative, but also when you know how to deal with the existing process, to analyze it. So is management a counter issue to improvisation? No, I don't think so. sometimes it's very good to have like that kind of structural thinking, to be able to divide the process, to be able to understand potential impact of interventions on involved agents and stakeholders. And this is very much based on rationality. So it's like this, you could say, oh, that's the left and right brain thinking coming together. And as a cook, you better mix it in the appropriate manner. And sometimes the core audience is maybe yourself. I mean, and this is in innovation, this is in cooking. When your decision is that you want to do something that makes you happy, or say where you spend time over a day and you say, okay, I've done it. That's one thing. What does it mean I've done it? Are you satisfied with the day? Was it a cool day? Was it a day where you say, okay, that was worth the effort? Isn't that a nice thing? When you reflect on the day, listen to some kind of nice music, maybe you have a nice glass of wine, and then you say, wow, that was cool. I did good. And I think that's an issue. And so you have to like and love what you do. And maybe this is even more important than what other people expect from you. Some of really nice composers, I think, wasn't it Mark Knopfler? He was once asked, when you do a composition, what is the key audience? And he said, first of all, it's me. And I think, that's the issue. So, and I think when you love it, then it's easier also to show it to other people and to communicate to other people. And by that, I think people get together, things get together, and maybe by that we also build those kind of creative, powerful teams with great improvisation capabilities that can make a difference. And I think so, therefore, we have to be aware of these differences and even the cultural differences. Also, when we cook with the audience, what do I want to achieve here? And yeah, maybe that's are some of the key things here. So when I put it together, it's what I would say a key issue is this inclusiveness. It's like having a wide field of methods, also theories, processes available, and actually having that available in your brain based on your experiences and based sometimes on stories that you heard from others, that might provide also the needed orientation and stability. Because we didn't talk about that so far, but creative problem solving, being highly innovative, being great in improvisation. I think all that is nice, but it's similar to an adventurer who does a new adventure without having the right tools available, without having had the right experiences, without having a kind of a picture where you want to move. You have to do some basic decisions on that. And I think, so the issue is, I would say, in order to be really highly creative and innovative, you also need at the same time a kind of stability and orientation. And this orientation actually is the kind of the safety system also for yourself. When you are somewhere at the crossway and you don't know, should I move to the left or to the right side? So then you need something. You need something that might be based on patterns of experience in the past that help you to decide. And then you look to the right side and you see, okay, it seems like that the soil is more stable here to the right side, but you can do an interpretation on the environmental conditions. And this is now not only the creative part, but it's rationality. So I think maybe real creativity requires both rationality, orientation, process, system thinking, and then understanding where there are the potential vulnerabilities, gaps, and then being creative, do improvisations, and succeed.
Thank you very much for these answers. Regarding the pressure of time, I have one more question. Because sometimes the big things can be seen in the small things. And when we started 10 minutes before 8 and checking the technical equipment, there was pressure, there was a challenge. You're experienced in Zoom and so on, but it didn't work. And then it was 8 o'clock and there were 20 people waiting to hear and listen to you. So what was in your mind a minute after 8 and it didn't work out regarding the problem and the possible solution that was not there yet?
I think, that's also the cool thing, because then, you feel it, like you feel it in your blood, when I reflect on that situation, no, it doesn't. I'm not calm at that moment. It's like, so many things in my brain. And the thing is, what do I want to do? And there was one thing that I definitely wanted to do, that was talking to you, to your colleagues, to this group. So that was crucial. So, and based on in that moment, I think it was like several options came up. So the one was, okay, one suggestion would have been, okay, why not? You ask me the things via chat, would be possible. So that was one option that came up. The other one was going down with the whole system and try that out. It didn't work. And then actually I thought, going with my shock bone headset, that might be an issue. Or say, let's do a mix form of telephone and kind of Zoom-based video. So I think it's at the moment not nice. And when you get it done, it feels very good, because you were able to manage it. And when you say to yourself, I think there's one option that is not the option, and this is that we fail and that we cannot have our conversation. That was the no option. And so, I was sure. And actually, that's now only in my brain, but let's think about it as we are here. Then I knew that there's Lucas on the other side. And to say that to my colleagues here, I know that guy now already since some time. So I also feel very comfortable that together, playing kind of ping pong, we will be able to deal with difficult situations. We did it in the past, so that brings me back to experience. So to be honest, I would not like to have a situation with everyone, but I know based on the experience, I can rely on this person. And I was pretty sure that there's also a good team here, you, the participants of that course. And so maybe you would have an idea how to better deal with it, something that we might have overseen. So I think this kind of experience, trust, but also expectations and kind of belief that when people come together, and today we come together here, colleagues, you, Lucas, me, I think it's a very cool thing to have the opportunity to get together at 8 and to think something that might make a difference. So yes, again, it's also a kind of creative act based on pressure and framework conditions that you would not choose them in such a manner. Yes, that's very true.